Alright, this is problem 6, 7, 8, and 9 from test review number 4. And what we have here is x squared to the third power. So what this really means is that x squared is multiplied 3 times. So it's x squared times x squared, times x squared, which if then we add our exponents, 2 plus 2 is 4 plus 2 is 6, x to the 6th. The shortcut, however, is simply to multiply the exponent on the outside of the parentheses by the exponent of each of the exponents. There's only one exponent inside these parentheses, so we just simply multiply 3 times 2, which will then give us x to the 6th. We'll have different examples later of when you have more than one exponent inside of a parenthesis. Alright, for this problem, you have negative x squared to the third. Well, it comes out the same answer except for with a negative in front. But here's a good way to keep track. 3 times 2 is 6. If you were to take the negative and make it a negative 1, and this is negative 1 x squared to the third power, then you take the 3 and say negative 1 to the third power times x, and you do 3 times 2, which is 6, so that becomes x to the 6th. And when you simplify this negative 1 to the third power, which is like saying negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1, which will give you negative 1 times 1, negative 1 is positive 1, so you have 1 times this negative 1, that gives you negative 1. So you still have a negative. You end up with the negative x to the 6th, or negative 1x to the 6th. Sometimes breaking it apart keeps the confusion of having that negative in front of the x more simple. So if you turn it into a negative 1, then you have negative 1 to the third times x to the 6th, because we simplify x squared to the third. Okay, so ultimately the answer is negative x to the 6th, or you can look at it as written in this way. It's both the same thing. In this situation, we have this is a 2 and that's a 4. So we simply we look at each term alone and then put it together. So x to the 4th to the second power, you multiply these exponents. 4 times 2 is 8, so that's x to the 8th. And that's the little multiply there. Now we take this expression over here and simplify it. X to the third to the 4th, which is 3 times 4 is 12, so that's x to the 12th. And now you apply the adding rule. 8 plus 12, so that will give you x to the 20th as your final answer. In this problem, you have to break it apart in the same way. Treat each section as something to look at separately at first, and then you look at it together. So the only one to simplify before doing anything is this middle one. So do the 3 times the 2, that middle term becomes x to the 6th. And then over here you'll still have x4, y5. And over here you have the minus 2, which I like to keep in parentheses. And then you have x squared and y. Remember, y is y to the 1 power. Okay, so now you've got a number, x, a y, an x, an x, and a y. So let's rearrange. And let me put a little line here because this is problem 9. Rearrange this problem so we have our like terms together. We want to put our x's next to each other, our y's next to each other and the numbers. We have one number, so that's negative 2. We have an x squared. We have an x to the 6th. And we have an x to the 4th. That looks terribly like a y. We have those, and now we have y's. Remember, this is y1. Anything with no exponent on it can have a 1 on it. And this is y to the 5th. Now we can combine. We have negative 2 times, these are multiplied, so you go 2 plus 6 is 8, plus 4 is 12, so it's x to the 12, and then y to the 6th power. So the answer is negative 2, x12, y to the 6th power.